Does it say that's recording for you?
Yes.
Okay, we're back for video React video number two. Thanks to our 274 fans. That's 274 more fans than I expected us to have. So, I got a
Yeah,
video.
274 views.
Yeah, 274.
Hey, you up there.
I know. It's because the clickbaity thumbnail and everything.
Uh,
Once
that's
they
true. That
saw,
thumbnail, that thumbnail is actually like way too legit for the actual content. Like, it's just two nerds just like ranting about how dumb these idiots are, and then the thumbnail like actually looked like a decent video essay. I was
for
like,
real,
wow.
and the quality of the thumbnail is like 20 times better than the quality of the actual video,
Yeah,
which is
that's actually true. Oh my God. But hey, nonetheless.
yeah. Okay, so I was watching this. Okay, you wanted to talk about politics, and the Trump administration just started, so I figured this might be a good one because we have a communist on the left, which is Ben Burgis, and a libertarian, which is Stefan Molyneux.
All right.
And I don't wanna say anything about these people because I want your opinion. Do you know either of these people?
No, I do not know them.
Okay. I'm having trouble already saving what I need to say, but we'll see. So yeah, so we got a little debate. The debate's not in the title. I believe they're debating over I think libertarianism. I don't remember exactly what it is. I don't know if there is an exact proposition that they're debating. But I guess we'll find out. So yeah, just let me know if you need me to stop it or anything.
All
So
right.
how was the audio for you right now?
For the video?
Yeah, you probably can't hear it actually, right?
Yeah, it's paused right now, so.
Oh, but did you hear it earlier? There was intro music.
No, I didn't hear anything actually.
Yeah, that I always forget. Okay, I'll fix this in just a moment. I need to end, stop sharing, and then I need to start sharing again.
By saying, let's start
Can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna slowly turn the volume down. You tell me when to stop.
with definitions. I believe that most conflicts can be resolved through clear definitions. If you have clear
That's
enough
good.
definitions, you can usually agree. Sane, sensible people can usually agree on a lot more. So definitions for me are very, very key. So capitalism, what do I mean by capitalism? Well, I want to differentiate it from
You want to, how are we with speed? Is this too fast or should we bring it down a little bit?
Mm, might try 1.25.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
the current godforsaken mess that we have at the moment, sometimes called crony capitalism, more technically called fascism, which is public funding with private profits. It's a godforsaken mess that has created untold suffering to millions or tens of millions around the world. It's a debt-based system where the government controls the currency, the interest rates, the education, the healthcare, the old age pensions, the you name it. And it is massively corrupt. And you've got people buying congressmen and congresswomen left, right, and center for preferential treatments for large companies at the expense of small companies and in particular workers. You have a truly nightmare scenario where people can hoover money up out of the corporate legal fictions called corporations. And then if the corporations go tits up, well, they get to walk away with all their millions and nobody can touch them through the corporate shield. The entire corporate system is set up to protect the ruling classes, both in terms of military and in terms of finance and in terms of political power. So I'm not talking about what we have going on in the world right now. What I'm talking about when I talk about capitalism is I'm talking about a system that has been dreamed of by human beings for thousands of years. And what I mean by that is a system which brings true and full legal and political equality to each and every human being. See, I'm of the opinion, and I think it's more than an opinion, I think most people accept this, that human beings cannot in any way, shape, or form handle power. Power is very bad for us. When I was a kid, we had to put
Facts.
coins in the heating device, and sometimes
I mean, I agree with everything you said so far. I don't even know what you want me to say. Like, you talk about power. Yeah, human beings cannot handle power. Don't, if I'm already starting. So
You go. Yeah,
a
go.
lot of people I notice nowadays, especially like, hmm, how do I word it? Especially in the West, I find are quite cynical about human nature. Many people I've talked to who are into philosophy or even psychology just kind of have this idea that humans are inherently selfish. And I always say that if you truly believe this, how can you defend any system that has hierarchy? Because what just happens is the people who are so power hungry climb up to the top where every other just regular ass person who doesn't care about these things are just going to be chilling at the bottom because they're not even thinking about it, right? So it already from that standpoint, you're just breeding exploitation. So anyway, yeah, this guy, I already like what he said. That's all I want to
Okay.
say.
Okay. I think okay, I think a few things. I think kind of like the last video where it started like pretty basic and then kind of togged and turned into dog water as it continued. I think that might be a pattern here as well. I think the only thing is when you have very broad principles like that, it can support a bunch of different worldviews, and so it's not like you agree with him so far.
Yeah,
that will
for sure.
that will change. But
That would
like
definitely change.
yeah, I think yeah, so we'll continue watching, but very good input. I don't fully agree, but okay, I'll voice a really quick concern. Wouldn't people try to get unfair power under anarchy as well?
Um, that's a great question. I don't know if we have time to dive deep into that right now.
Yeah.
But the idea with with anarchy, right, is that you are gonna have people who are gonna want to, create hierarchical structures by because that's what, power is, right? Kind of creating these hierarchical power structures. And in an anarchy, hopefully what would happen is the people will not let that happen. And so that's kind of the goal, right? Where, yeah, like if you get to an anarchy, whether it's through revolution, all that stuff, um, you got to keep it that way. Don't replace it with anything else. Because what you're referring to, the people who, oh, after, we overthrow the government, we're in anarchy. Won't people just be looking for power? Yeah, that happens a lot. And it's because are, most people aren't anarchists. And most people do want to replace it with another system. And then that system they replace it with, they end up becoming okay, not always, but it usually ends up becoming very like a conservative, sometimes turns into fascism. This happens a lot with socialist parties, unfortunately, where you have like a socialist revolution and then they take over and then they start becoming fascist for some reason. I'm not sure why that happens. So the goal is not to replace the thing you just overthrew with anything else. Um, so that would be avoided under anarchy, ideally.
Okay. Yeah, we're definitely okay, we should definitely talk about this again
Yeah, we
sometime
need a whole
'cause
video on anarchy.
yeah, I'll have to read up. I want to do some reading up on it first though. So,
Yeah.
Times we had to put actual pennies in the fuse box because it was a huge fire hazard and so on. But human beings can't handle huge voltages of power, political power, any more than the pennies when I was a kid could handle electrical power. They regularly melted and sort of dripped out. Human beings get overwhelmed and blown out and corrupted by power. As the old saying goes, power tends to corrupt, absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. So the whole question of human society, which is really, really important now that we're seeing the corruption of the FISA courts and the Patriot Act and the FBI and so on. And I know Ben has had his oppositions to the Patriot Act just as I have. See, reasonable people can find common ground. Human beings cannot handle political power. And the only way to solve the problem of political power is the same way that we solve the problem of slavery. Eliminate it. Eliminate it top to bottom, back to front, A to Z, zero to infinity. You must eliminate the state in order for human beings to have any capacity for equality and
Is he an
security and continuity
anarcho-communist?
in the
he's an anarcho-capitalist.
Anarcho-cap? Why would you put why would you put me in this video?
Bro,
No, okay, first of all,
bro,
I thought the guy on the left was the communist. The guy on the right was the communist. Okay. Well,
my
first
bad.
of
I
all,
meant the left of the title.
oh, okay. Okay. God, I feel ashamed for even agreeing with the beginning part of what he was saying. Now you
That's
trapped me. You trapped me.
bro, I told you
Um
that. But that's why I left you an out. I left you an out. That's why I was like, you agree with him now, but like
you,
that won't continue. So
Okay, for anyone watching, if you are an anarcho-capitalist, reconsider your life. Not really, but just reevaluate your ideas a bit more. I don't know how you're gonna form a capitalist society under anarchism. Capitalism is inherently hierarchical. Things like private property just does not work under anarchism. Just please stop. Don't. I'm ashamed. Okay, continue.
okay.
The institutions of civilizations that we all rely on to survive. And in this, I actually meet Marx's dream at its end rather than at its beginning or at its middle, because Marx, of course, dreamt of and advocated for, though never really explicated how you were going to get there, a stateless society. The government is a monstrous, power-hungry, lusty, evil violation of the non-aggression principle, and we have inherited it just as humanity had inherited slavery from prior civilizations. We've inherited it, and it just seems to make sense. But just as the ending of slavery was the extension of self-ownership to all human beings, the ending of the state is the extension of the non-aggression principle to all human beings. Now, we know from things like physics, from things like biology and so on, that when
One thing to keep in mind is that Molyneux references the non-aggression principle a lot throughout this debate, and that's a common libertarian principle. And he doesn't define it. Nobody defines it. They just kind of take it for granted. I don't remember exactly what it is, but I think it's something like it's only wrong. I mean, sorry, it's only permissible to coerce or hurt or something like that other people if they do it to you first. You can't. So coercion is bad unless somebody else is trying to hurt you, then you can kind of do what you want. It's kind of like a self-defense
Yeah,
type thing. That's the impression I get. I'm happy to have any libertarians correct me if that's not what it is.
I mean that's my understanding of it too. It's
Can
basically
you?
like it's almost like a social contract in a way.
Hmm. Yeah, I could see that.
extend principles that are universal to their true level.
I hope right now I think they're just talking, but they do go into like a formal debate. I hope they get into that soon because that's where it actually starts to get good. This intro
Mhm.
thing is good, but it's not like it doesn't give us the opportunity to shit post as much as I would want to.
Of universality and absolutism, you get incredibly wonderful power over the universe. If you hold the speed of light is constant, you gain the awesome power and terror of nuclear power. Even if you just say that everything in the universe is subject to gravity and everything falls, you get an accurate model of the sun-centered solar system and you understand the universe probably for the first time. When you take our immediate experience that everything kind of falls, if you take our immediate moral experience that using violence to solve social problems is the greatest moral stain on humanity, if you use our personal moral experiences, all the moral lessons that we learn in kindergarten, don't hit, don't punch, don't steal, don't lie, and you simply say, we are going to take these moral absolutes that we're given as children, that we all accept in our personal lives, and we're going to extend them everywhere, across society, across the world, across time. Well, a consistent application of the nonviolence principle, and by that I exclude self-defense. So, those of you who hear someone breaking into your house right now, please stop listening to this and go and deal with it. You have full permission to use force in self-defense. But if we take this non-aggression principle, this respect for property that we're all taught as children, and we extend it to society as a whole, we will gain the third great revolution in the history of mankind. The first was really just coming out of the swamps and coming down from the trees and having first basic human society, basic farming, basic property rights, the 10,000 year ago explosion of calories that allowed us to develop a civilization. The second was the end of slavery. From, however you want to count it, 18th century, 19th century, and so on. The end of slavery was the birth of the modern world. That's the second one. The third one is the end of the state. So first, you end rank ape-like tribalism. Second, you end slavery. Third, you end the state. Now, once we achieve that, well, we know if you look at the continuity of...
I don't know. One thing I just realized watching this a second time is that he talks about ending slavery, but there still is slavery. So I just don't know if he's referring to the United States specifically or what exactly. I don't know if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I kind of just assumed he was talking about the United States, but you're exactly right. Like, I'm not sure what he constitutes as slavery. And of course he's a capitalist, so that kind of is a red flag when capitalists talk about slavery. Wow, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
economic productivity throughout most of human history, it's a flat line. Like, it's such a flat line, it sort of mimics Jeffrey Epstein's EKG these days, right? But then when you eliminate slavery, and you have private property and you have free trade, free markets, you get this massive eruption in productivity that is continuing with a certain amount of staggering at the moment to this very day. We will gain an equivalent burst in productivity, improvement in productivity when we take our moral lessons and truly universalize them. And we don't have what oligarchs have always had throughout human history, which is rules for thee, but not for me. And I consider that the worst hypocrisy as a moral theorist, which is, well, the Federal Reserve can create money out of nothing.
I don't know if we'll have time to get to this, but his moral theory is somehow worse than Sam Harris's from last video.
Okay.
So I mean, hopefully we get to it because I want to see your thoughts, but maybe save that for another time. I don't know if we
Yeah.
get that far.
Nothing, and that's called sound economic policy. But if you try and create money out of nothing, well, my friend, you're a counterfeiter and you're going to jail. And you and I can't use force to redistribute income. That's called theft, organized crime, but the government can, and that's called virtue. So simply eliminate all of the hypocrisies, all of the contradictions in our absolute moral rules, our general moral rules, and we live out the dream of kindergarten. It sounds like an odd way to put it. But what if we simply said, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not rape, thou shalt not assault? What if we simply take that and make that our universal standard for humankind? Well, I believe that morality, like physics, only gains its true power when it is truly universalized. And for that, we must negotiate with each other. We must accept the reality of human evil and human corruption through power.
Okay, I want to make a few comments real quick. One is I guess a content warning. Molyneux for some reason talks about sexual violence over and over and over again in this video, and it was a lot for me when I first watched it, and I think that's one of the reasons I never actually finished this video because he just kept bringing it up, and it's like I don't want to keep thinking about this. It was like it's not necessary for the argument. Uh, yeah, second thing is that he thinks taxation is theft, which you have to use if you don't pay your taxes, you get punished, so taxation is inherently coercive. If you coerce people to give you things, that's theft. So, Ben Burgess does not agree with that. So, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good.
Power and eliminate the state as the great temptation to corrupt human beings and undo civilization. Because what is civilization? Civilization is the commitment to use reason rather than force. And the state, as an agency of force, is that which holds us back and drags us down to the apes. And that is my introduction.
All right. So,
Okay, I guess I was wrong. I guess that was his opening statement. So there was no talk. There was no conversation at the beginning. So they're both going to do an opening statement, and then maybe they'll reply to each other.
Stefan started with the definition of capitalism, and I think it's important to at least quickly touch on that issue. So capitalism is used historically by most people to mean a system under.
I'm going to skip over Ben Burgess, and I'm just going to summarize his views because I think they're relatively reasonable. If I remember correctly, his main thrust is capitalism is inherently exploitative. You work and somebody above you takes your surplus value. And so really that's yours, but someone is taking it from you. But under communism, or socialism, you get all of the surplus value that you worked for. And so you're not alienated from your labor. So I'm going to skip over his views. If you don't agree, because the audience doesn't agree, then you can, with my interpretation, feel free to correct me. So let's go to Stefan Molyneux. Looks like it's right here.
I'm just going to pick out a couple of things. So with regards to nationalizing the pharmaceutical industry, well, the pharmaceutical industry has been entirely corrupted by state power. So this is one of the things that's kind of typical from a leftist perspective is government power creates all of these distortions and problems and weird incentives and odd little n-dimensional profit pockets that then they say, aha, you see, the free market isn't working. We just have to take it over completely, which is, like beating a guy to death and saying, well, now we have to put him out of his misery because, he's not going to get any better. So with pharmaceuticals, what's happened? Well, of course, the government pays for a lot of pharmaceuticals, which means for a massive overprescription situation. The government enforces intellectual property laws. The government creates massive barriers to innovation in that it takes about $1 billion and 10 years to get a drug to market, which means that there's almost no incentive to go for smaller markets. The government, because 800 babies got deformed during the thalidomide scare when this was a medicine that women took to deal with morning sickness in the 1960s, it produced birth defects. And as a result of that, the FDA was brought into power. Its power was extended to the point now where about 5 million Americans have been killed because the FDA has kept off the market drugs which are perfectly legal and safe in Europe and in other places. But of course, they have been corrupted by power, the pharmaceutical industry being paid by the state, being protected by the state, being fostered by the state, being regulated by the state. It's turned into a massive, monstrous, horrifying problem. So then saying,
What'd you say?
No, it's just the person just showed up on the screen. I was like, who is this person? Oh, I didn't even see the person in the bottom the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know what's going on there. Maybe that's the moderator. I don't know. It looks like it's just a still photo, I think.
well, the solution you see is to
No,
dash.
Oh, no,
it's
he's
just like
moving.
a,
No, he's
it's
moving.
a
He's moving.
reaction. I think it's a reaction to a reaction.
Bro, this is a React video. I didn't even realize that. There's a, well, he doesn't react to it, but you don't get any of his input, so
True.
I don't know. I don't know what he's doing there. He's just vibing.
Well, no, it's already gone rancid from violations of the non-aggression principle, and therefore more violations of the non-aggression principle is simply going to make it worse. Now, when you bring up something like coronavirus, well, as a Marxist, of course, you're perfectly aware that China was founded as a communist country. Of course, it has killed tens and tens and tens of millions of its own citizens, and of course, it has helped facilitate the spread of coronavirus around the world. So the idea that we need communism to save us from the virus spread by communism is just another one of these brain-bending Mobius strip mind fracks that I don't even know how to point out other than to point it out. Now, as far as the slave beaten less is...
I want to comment on that. I can't speak about what claims exactly he's referring to. I think I probably need to do some research first. But one thing to keep in mind is that Molyneux takes very controversial claims for granted. Very controversial claims that most people would not take for granted, he takes for granted. And it's a little bit upsetting to see it in the debate because you want to, when you debate, you want to build upon your common ground. You want to advance arguments for positions you don't that are contentious by using positions that are already agreed upon. Because if you build your argument upon claims that they don't already agree upon, then they're never going to be convinced. So he just takes really controversial claims for granted, and it's a little bit frustrating. So, like that, for example. And it's just like, dude, maybe you're right. I am very skeptical of it. But you what the hell, bro? So yeah, that's what I think.
Is subject to less coercion? Well, no, because slavery itself is a coercive institution. Slavery is a state program in that when slaves exist, they exist in a state of enslavement because the government is willing to enforce slave contracts and will go and round up slaves who escape and bring them back on the public purse. And in fact, I mean, one of the reasons why the average working class in the South in America hated slavery was A, because it drove down the wages and was really hard to compete, and B, because they were actually kind of forced to go on these slave patrols and they had to go and catch slaves, and it was just a horrible mess. Now, of course, it helped out the rich, it helped out the powerful, it helped out the elites, but it was destructive, of course, to the local population, particularly the working classes. So a slave who's beaten less, yeah, sure, they're lucky. You know, it's like if you happen to get thrown into a Soviet gulag under Stalin and you get beaten less, the issue is that you're in a gulag, not how much you're beaten. It certainly matters to your quality of experience, how much you're beaten, but it doesn't matter to the moral nature of the situation. So,
okay, I don't know if I fully understood what he was saying. You can tell me if I didn't get this right. He was saying that the South didn't want slavery and that they were actually kind of upset that there was slaves. Because that sounded like what he was saying.
I think he was referring to a particular class of the people in the South, like the working class specifically. I don't know if that's true, to be honest. I think that over, I have to fact check this. But I believe an overwhelming amount of people in the South supported slavery. I mean, that's why we had the Civil War. If it was just the elite, then I don't think they'd be nearly as, have nearly as much power in regards to actually forming an entire war, an army. So I don't know how true that is, but I think he was just particularly talking about the working class in the South.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, I agree. Yeah, that makes sense. Like your interpretation of what he said, that's what makes sense. Not what he said makes sense.
With regards to what we need the government, you see, to handle things like minimum wage laws and health and safety laws and things like that. Well, no, because it's called regulatory capture, right? So what happens is when the government gets a certain amount of power, which it always does, what happens is the existing corporations move in to exploit that power for their own benefit at the expense of others. You can see this in a micro example with the sugar industry, in that the sugar industry keeps these massive tariffs going on to keep sugar from, say, Jamaica or other places out of America so they can charge more for sugar. And what does that mean? Well, it means that sugar becomes so expensive that you get godforsaken Satan sweat like fructose, glucose being used, and sucralose and aspartame being used instead, and that's really, really bad for people's health. So it is just a giant mess. Minimum wage laws are there to cover up how absolutely shitty government schools are and how little they prepare people to be even remotely productive in a free market situation. In government schools, they'll teach you how to masturbate when you're 5 years old. They'll teach you about 57 genders, but they won't teach you how to raise money, how to start a business, how to compete.
What? Okay. I don't know what to say. I mean, there's so many things that have just been said here that's just ridiculous. I'm not sure. Uh, okay, I only know where to start. So you see somehow productivity a lot, um, which I think is really strange. But given that he is a capitalist, it makes sense. I disagree. Like, I don't even know if this is disagreement or just more like I disapprove of his um the extreme amount of value he places in productivity. I can already imagine like in his like anarchist utopia, like people are just basically like productive machines that, and I assume, given that he's a capitalist, that private property exists, and this property is gonna essentially exploit people who don't have it, and you can't, tread on it due to this so-called non-aggression principle. So, I don't know what kind of world he thinks. I don't know how this he thinks this is gonna be different compared to if there was a state. Like he seems to be really like, upset with the state and all these things, but I don't know how this world he envisions will be much different. Um, that's all I gotta say. In regards if we're talking about just like the American government.
Right. Dude, what about the very last thing he ended on about about
Was that when he was
education?
talking to, yeah, education about, yeah, I didn't even know if I wanted to address that. He
I
said
can say
something
something if you
about,
want, yeah.
no, he said something about
Okay.
like what they're teaching like 5-year-olds to masturbate. Is that what he said?
Yeah. And 57
Uh,
genders.
yeah, and the 57 gender thing. I mean, I don't know what else to say besides that's just disgusting. I'm not sure why he would even say that. Do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, I do. It's kind of like, how am I supposed to take him seriously when he's saying stuff like that? Because like, okay, you want to have critiques of the education system? Okay, that's critiquing is good. You think that like schools are too woke? Okay, I definitely don't agree with that at all. But okay, advance your argument. You know what I mean? You want to make the case, make the case. If you're saying that, that's just obviously not true. Like you don't need to be a genius to figure that out. Um, Sex education in the entire United States is very conservative, and the way it is, it's causing a lot of harms. And so to frame sex education in that way is not only wrong, but it's literally the opposite of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And and that goes with the 57 gender thing. People on the right, I mean, he's libertarian, so I don't know where you put him, but I'm gonna call him on the right, I guess. Um, they love talking about like, oh, the left thinks there's like 57 genders. Dude, like, you realize when you say stuff like that, the only people who actually take you seriously are people who are also who follow the propaganda. Like nobody who actually is not dogmatic actually thinks what you're saying is like worth taking seriously.
Mm,
So when people say something like that, I'm immediately like, okay, you're not a good faith interlocutor. You're either being an argumentative asshole or you don't know what you're talking about. And it's usually both. So um yeah, he says a lot more stuff. I hope we get to it.
yeah. Real
We got
quick, have you heard about what Trump did in regard to like gender identity and all that stuff?
a little bit. Do you You want to tell
Oh
me?
yeah, I mean, I'll just be real quick. Yeah,
Yeah, go
Trump
ahead.
basically um, makes it. He signed an executive order that basically recognizes only two genders, male and female, which is ridiculous, but you know that's quite expected from him, unfortunately. Um, but one thing I think that's interesting is that the way there's this article I read where the way that the executive order is written, it actually kind of makes everyone a woman because he made it based on your assigned sex at conception. And since everyone at conception starts as a woman, people have been making these comments like, okay, we're all women now. Um, but anyway, the reason why I just thought about that because obviously this guy is very right leaning in his political views, and it's just really sad right now that the fact that basically they're trying to wipe people, gender not conforming people, like just pretend like they don't exist at all, and it's just disgusting behavior. So
It is. It is.
yeah.
And yeah, so he did a bunch of executive orders recently, and it literally radicalized me. So,
It
um,
radicalized you?
yeah, that was like the breaking point.
Oh my
Like,
God, wait. Okay, I'm sorry. This is during the video, but like can you give me like a quick rundown on how that broke you or like in what way?
I'm just worried because like, what if I tell you after the video? Because
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah, go ahead. You can tell me after.
I kind of want to, but like, it's kind of it's maybe too much, maybe too much because maybe more
Well,
than what I want to say online publicly.
yeah, okay, honestly true, 'cause like we live in a world right now where basically all the like social media companies are basically Trump's bitch. I don't know how else to put it. So I've
Yeah,
seen people get banned. I've seen people get flagged for saying quote unquote radical things. So I understand.
yeah, and I'm not afraid to say radical things. It's just that what I would say is like probably illegal, so like I don't want to
Oh
say
no,
it
I
publicly.
understand, bro. We're Big Brother right now. We're basically living in 1984. So
Yeah.
uh,
So I
I'm
mean,
probably
like,
already flagged. I can't say it. I can't say. I was gonna say some crazy shit.
okay, when we see each other, we'll go all out.
Okay, back to the video.
with the existing business structures that's out there. So of course, people graduate barely able to spell their own names because they've been chewed up and spit out with their brains hanging out between their asses. And then you say, well, you see, we have to have minimum wage laws because, well, people just aren't that productive. Same thing with health and safety laws. The way that you deal with health and safety is you make the owners of the corporations personally liable for deaths that occur through carelessness or lack of safety procedures in their business, so they lose their goddamn houses. Right now, you sue a corporation, the executives all get to walk free and keep all of their ill-gotten gains a lot of times with somebody whose executives couldn't lose their homes for bad behavior. As far as health and safety laws have gone, and I'll just end up with this point, what's happened? How safe are Americans? Well, what's happened is the health and safety laws have become so Byzantine and so complicated, which is partly the politicians, and it's also partly, of course, the fact that existing businesses who have big ass legal departments really want hyper complicated regulations because it's a barrier to entry for any small company that wants to compete with them. But what's happened is it's become so impossible to do business as a manufacturing concern in America that all of the manufacturing jobs have headed overseas. And what does that mean? Depression, anxiety, suicide, drug addiction, the splintering of families to the point now where opioid addiction, which largely centers around the lower middle class that used to have jobs in manufacturing, now you've got an opioid addiction crisis in America that kills more Americans every year than died in the entire course of fighting communism in Vietnam. And so it really hasn't turned out to be very health and safety focused to drive all of the manufacturing overseas and now have not just America's goods that are dependent upon the benevolence of a pretty psychotic communist regime in China, but also basic medical care, basic medicines have now been outsourced to the very source of the coronavirus and the regime that helped spread it around the world in strict defiance of the regulations that they had signed. So yeah, regulations are just a way of covering up government incompetence and the government bureaucracy and the government destruction of human capital. And so it's the old thing.
Okay, I was waiting for him to finish his thought because I thought he was about to finish, but it just kept going. So I'm gonna comment. Um, I want to comment on two things: his argumentative style and the content of what he's talking about. So I'll start with like the argumentative style. He's not really advancing an argument, as I take it. He's just kind of yapping about his worldview,
True.
which that's what people like to do. it's very fun to yap about your worldview, but what's hard and intellectually demanding is providing a well-structured, coherent, and evidentially forceful case for your point of view. And he's just kind of like, yeah, he's not providing a compelling argument at all. You would only accept his conclusion if you already agree with his conclusion. Like his premises are not really supporting it. His premises are just as controversial as his thesis. And that's not how good arguments work. Good arguments, you have non-controversial premises and that lead to a controversial thesis. Um, Secondly, I feel like I just agree with like either okay, everything that's not obviously true, I probably like disagree with what he said, either in terms of that it's false or that it's framed in a way that I don't think is accurate. Um, he talks about the opiate crisis. Yeah, opiate addiction is a problem, but his framing of it, um, I don't agree with. This he kind of throws so much out that it's kind of hard. It's hard to catch any of it and know what to talk about. So yeah, I don't know. It's just trash. I don't know what to say.
That's all you can say at this point. I mean, and exactly what you said, like it's really hard to even if you was saying things I agreed with, or things that were somewhat reasonable, it's hard to be persuaded when you just feel like you're being taught that. It's not a very convincing form of um
Mhm.
I don't know what the term is, ethos, I don't know. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
More government is always offered as a solution to prior government screw-ups.
All right. So I do.
Okay, I think we're gonna skip over Ben because if you don't agree with, I'm
The
not saying you
audience
gotta agree with Ben. Yeah.
the audience wants to know what Ben has to say.
You want to hear Ben?
Yeah, just a little bit. I don't want to
Okay.
hear this guy the whole time.
Okay, you're right. You're right. You're right.
Like the comparison
My apologies.
between somebody being beaten badly, and then you say, "Oh, he's been beaten so badly, we should just put him out of his misery." But I think what that would better apply to would be the argument that we just heard, that because regulatory capture is a problem, right? Again, it's a problem that the sharp edges of regulation are blunted by the political influence of big business. Therefore, we should just put regulation out of its misery and go all the way to not having any of these regulations at all, hoping that people, perhaps victims of everything from pollution to unsafe workplaces, etc., will just win court battles with far wealthier parties in courts that, as I understand it, under anarcho-capitalism, both parties would have to agree to, about which I say good luck with that. As to the idea that government involvement in pharmaceuticals is somehow responsible for the pharmaceutical companies being more interested in short-term profit than in planning for things that should have been obviously coming around the pike when we saw SARS and MERS happening. I don't really get how that case is supposed to go. Maybe Stefan can talk more about this later, but there's no obvious connection there. Now, about coronavirus apparently starting in China, I'm not quite sure what the relevance of that is to anything, right? So my position, as stated at the beginning, is democratic socialism. I like democracy. I like it so much that I want to socialize the major means of production and extend democracy into the workplace. China was founded as something that, and again, as with earlier, I'm not too interested in arguing about semantics. If you want to call it a radically different form of socialism than I advocate, I'm happy to talk like that. If you want to say it's not socialism at all, because socialism would be a classless society, and that's a society with a bureaucratic ruling class, I'm happy to talk that way. But certainly nothing that even the most casual observer can mistake for socialist democracy. And since then, they've kept the elements that I would object to, the lack of political democracy, and they've extended it, and they've then eliminated the role of nationalized industry in the economy. Not entirely, but at this point, China is so capitalist, in my preferred sense of that word, I know not Stefan's, that that American companies will move there in order to take advantage of the poverty wages. That
All right, you
it's
can
so
pause.
it's so.
If you want to continue, if you wanted to move on to where you're going, you can. But it was interesting to hear Ben talk because I wasn't familiar with him. So he's a democratic socialist. Interesting, interesting.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about Ben's views a little bit lately. Doesn't make sense. I've been thinking about it a little. But um I don't know. I wish my roommate was here because he would definitely comment probably more charitably on China and possibly less charitably to not less charitably, but more with more skepticism towards democratic socialism. I I
Okay.
think so. I can't comment on that. I do wonder. Yeah, okay. I do agree with his main objection to Molyneux though, because I don't know how much of it got across. I don't know how much of it Molyneux said earlier, but one of his arguments is like Ben is a socialist. China is socialist. China is bad. Therefore, Ben's views are bad. And Ben's like, okay, okay, let's just say China is socialist. It's a completely different type of socialism. So say what you want about China. It doesn't affect my view. And that's what Ben is saying. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to agree with Ben to, that's obviously just a trash argument because it doesn't, you're here to debate Ben. So engage with Ben's views. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
Um,
I
it's
think
kind of,
both. Oh, go on.
no, you're good. You're good.
I was just say I think both socialists and anarchists, we get along so well because we both understand what it's like for capitalists to be like, well, look at what happened in this instance of socialism. Or honestly, most capitalists don't even refer to any like event of anarchy. They just go, but anarchy bad, chaos, no prisons, criminals. So that's literally all you hear. So
Yeah.
it's I that's why, I feel like the anarchist community and the socialist community get along so well because we understand that annoyance and with this horrible arguments. They never like actually attack the the system that is being presented. Instead, they just yeah, it's bad. Anyway.
No, I agree. Uh, yeah, I think it would have been beneficial to listen to more of Ben, but yeah, I don't have a lot of time, so kind of looks like they're conversing here. I got to see where they I think they go into I forgot what it's called, like an open dialogue type thing soon. So let's just try to find that because
Yeah.
Molyneux starts he kind of goes off the rails at that point.
Yeah, and I do want to I do want to like correct myself a little bit. Like
Mhm.
it's okay to refer to real life examples of political like, you know, what? Oh, sorry, my cat just distracted me. It's okay to like refer to real life examples of certain like systems, especially when someone's arguing that they want to apply these systems. But usually when people use those arguments, it's usually in bad faith. I noticed. So um
Right,
that's why I just have a disdain for it. But it's not unreasonable to be like, can you show me
Mhm.
examples of like this working
Right.
or stuff like that.
Yeah. No, another thing too is people are so quick to be like, look at this instance of communism failing really hard, but they will not do the same. They will not do the same for capitalism.
Very true. That's the status quo bias. Like they'll
Exactly.
see capitalism literally. We are literally watching capitalism fall in our faces as we speak, like right now, and people will still act like capitalism is most like perfect system. I think now people are kind of waking up to the idea of a world outside of capitalism, just based on how late in the stage we are, referring to capitalism in America. Um, but yeah, most people fall, you know, with the status quo bias where they just don't question the things that already exist. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. What made me think about this, I like how you framed it as status quo bias because I came at it from a completely different perspective, but I think it gets at the same thing as in queer theory, we talk about norms being naturalized. And what that
Hmm.
means basically is we have norms about what how people should look and like behave and act and stuff like that. And they become so ingrained in our culture and our worldview that we only recognize deviations from it and we don't recognize it in and of itself. So if you if you ever see like maybe like depending on where you're at, this will matter differently. But like a guy with painted nails, um, if you're in a really conservative area, people will be like, "What's going on? Like, why are you doing that?" You know?
Right.
But you don't even think, "Oh, that guy doesn't have painted nails." It's not a thought. Um, so you only recognize the deviation from the norm and not the norm itself. And what happens is that the norm becomes invisible and you stop seeing it as a contingent norm. You start seeing it as just the way that things are. And
Facts.
yeah.
I
So
agree with everything.
wait, did you say facts?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I agree. I thought you said sex, and then I was like, yeah,
Oh, no, no, I said facts.
no, I mean, but I mean, it's queer theory, so like it's
I know,
applying it to
yeah,
sexuality
it's
and gender.
relevant. I mean,
So,
yeah,
but
there's sex norms, the sexual norms that have the same, of course, has the same thing applies, but I wasn't getting into that.
yeah,
Especially
uh,
the way that it's just the way I presented it. Like if I did say sex, it was just like sex.
what that's what I
Just weird, but
yeah.
yeah,
Okay, let's see if they get into the open dialogue. It just
okay,
gets so bad. It just gets really bad. Like,
I'm scared.
who are shot for violating somebody's prosecution.
Okay, but that's like saying that slavery isn't slavery because very few slaves get killed trying to escape. I mean, it's the implicit threat that drives the whole system. So saying that you can't see the violence that is inherent in the system, to quote the old Monty Python line, just it's a willful blindness on your part. And equate, hang on, let me finish. Let me make a point, then you can rebut, right? I gave you a lot of space to make your point, all right? A woman's vagina. We haven't talked enough about women's vaginas yet,
Oh
all right,
Lord.
which is
Oh
generally where
gosh.
most debates should center around, right? Hang on.
Yeah, my friend.
So a woman who is resisting a rapist, right? So she owns her body. She owns her body. She has sovereign autonomy over her own body, and she has the right to deny entry of a male penis to her vagina, right? I think we would both accept that rape is an evil action and women have the right of self-defense.
I'm just gonna need a comment before he even gets to it. But obviously, I hate rape and rapists should die. But I don't like how he goes about framing it. He frames it in such a weird way. Some of it, he frames. I'll have to get back into it. I'll have to listen. But I just remember hearing the framing, and I'm just like, this doesn't sound like the right account. There's a different there's like you got the right conclusion, but like this is not the right approach to get there. So I'm curious to know what you think. I I don't like Molyneux. I don't like him.
I don't. I mean, I don't like him at all. I vibed with him for like 2 seconds in the beginning when he just expressed a general baseline anarchist take. Um, but now this is absurd. And I see what you mean. Is your issue with it the fact he's like referencing like property in regards to why like people shouldn't like assault other people? Is that your issue with it or
Yeah.
yeah? I could definitely.
Yeah.
I definitely understand that issue. I think that's also the wrong account to take in regards to this sensitive
Yeah.
topic.
I also feel like okay, you can use sometimes you need to use like fucked up thought experiments to get your point across. But I almost get the impression that he's not treating this the with the care it deserves as a topic. You don't you don't need to use this example all the time. And
No.
it almost sounds like he's being very frivolous with his use of it. And sorry, Molyneux, but you're a white guy, so like you're the person who has to worry about this the least. Uh, I'm not saying that you shouldn't care because it's good that you care. Um, but maybe just like be a little bit more, I don't know, like I'm not trying, I feel like it's gonna be kind of ableist, but it's like, no, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. But I
I
want to
mean,
say it. I can't say it. I think that's
no,
not
I
appropriate.
look, I get it. He's basically the way that I feel about it is that he's basically using this very sensitive topic um as like almost like a as a tool for his argument to like kind of create this like emotional shock. He uses this a lot, I notice, when he refers to slavery, just very intense things. One of the most horrible things that can happen to someone, and he uses these as tools for his argument. And I don't know if he thinks it strengthens it, but it really just not not only does it kind of make it weaker, but it also just like I just don't want to talk to you. You know what I mean? Like I don't even want to
Exactly.
like deal with you. I don't want to listen to you when every single thought experiment is just an atrocity. Um, so I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. For real. So yeah, I don't know. I think Ben, you could look at Ben's facial expressions. He's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Like
Yeah.
every single time. So I can empathize with Ben a little bit.
Defense against rape. So if you're going to say that defense of property is the same as the initiation of the use of force, you're creating a moral equivalence between a woman fighting for her life to not get raped and the rapist who's holding a knife to her throat. She has the right to protect her property called her body. And he, by initiating violence against her and threatening to rape her, is the evildoer, and she has the right of self-defense. You can't say that the protection of property is exactly the same as the violation of property, because then you're logically equating the rape victim with the rapist.
All right, pause. Um, just want to point out that people are not property. Um, I don't know why he's conflating this you know, human beings in reference to like private property. Even in a system or a lack of system where there is no private property, that doesn't suddenly just mean that people can just do whatever they want amongst each other, because that doesn't apply to living things at all. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of when I heard I don't know if this is like a standard move that libertarians make, but I've never heard of somebody referring to their own body as being their property. Um, and I'm just like, is this is what like capitalism does to you if you just go
It
like fully
does.
on board? Like you view yourself as your own property. Like just I see his point. I see his point. Like you have control of like just say you have control over yourself. You don't need to say that you're property of yourself.
Yeah.
That's that's just I don't know. I can't I'm can't get on board with that. I can't even like I'm having trouble even like seeing that as like a reasonable thing to say. So
All right. Part of what you said is true. So let's.
okay, also let's look at the logic of his argument. The short version, which I think is actually a relatively charitable interpretation, is you're logically committed to endorsing sexual violence if you're a communist. That's
Yes,
his argument.
that's basically his argument. That's why I said like in a world or in a system or non-system where private property doesn't exist, that doesn't mean that you can suddenly just do whatever you want to other people. And that's I knew exactly where he was going with that argument. I was like, that just does not follow. So
Yeah.
it's a very poor taste argument.
It's like this so obviously does not follow that I can't take you seriously
Right.
because um look, there are criticisms against all worldviews, including communism, and I want you to advance a good criticism. I don't want you to advance this criticism that obviously no one should accept because it's just trash. This
Right.
doesn't. And then I'm also wondering, as I was watching this, because I was showering and listening to it a while ago, and I'm like, bro, what am I doing with my life? Like, like, why, bro? This has like 3,000 views. It's not that popular, but I'm just like, I need to listen to anything else. or just meditate. You know what I mean? So anything
Let's
that's
start with
not
that.
the
Especially
Yeah,
after
just make the
this.
argument. Don't say what's true and what's false. That's called, that's setting up the whole frame there. Just make the argument.
So
okay, something else Molyneux does. I don't know how much we're gonna get to it. He keeps doing this thing where he's like, bro, just make the argument. Just make the argument. Stop saying this. And it's like, okay, two things. One, just let him talk, bro. Just let him talk. Secondly, a lot of times you need to make non-argumentative moves in order for your argument as a whole to work. And
Mm,
that, for example, you need to find points of agreement. You need to define your terms. You need to give examples for your view. None of these are inherently argumentative. They're more kind of like I'll call them dialectical, but like we don't need to get into that. It's other things you do around your argument that helps give it context and support it in terms of the conversation, in terms of the listener. And so he keeps being like, "Bro, just make the argument. Just make the argument, bro. Shut the fuck up. Just shut up. Just let him. Just shut up, please."
so the part that you got right, is of course rape is bad. We all have a right to bodily autonomy. I don't think it's very useful or conceptually precise to think of the right to bodily autonomy as a property right. But if you want to say that's property, fine, whatever. I'm not going to fight about that. But where theories of distributive justice disagree is not going to be about whether we have a right to bodily autonomy. It's going to be about what, if you want to call bodily autonomy self-ownership, like libertarians do. I think that's confused, but if you do, then it's about ownership of external goods. That's where the different theories are going to have different conclusions. The point, what I said was not that protecting property is itself an initiation of force. What I said is whether any given use of force, whether to enforce taxes, whether to enforce a no trespassing sign, whatever, whether any given use of force depends on initiation is going to depend, if you read the fine print of libertarian theories, like Nozick and Rothbard, it's going to depend on whether the person using the force has a right to the property they are enforcing their claim to. And whether, and that's where the action is. The NAP is a distraction, right? The real disagreement, the real debate is going to be about what property do we have a right to? Under what circumstances does someone have a just right to some piece of external property? We all agree that we can, that we should control our bodies. The question is, which external possessions do people have a right to control? A lot of libertarians will say, well, as long as your possessions can be traced back by some chain of free market transactions, no force and fraud, to a just act of original original acquisition, as Nozick's phrase, then you have a right to it. You ask, what counts as a just act of original acquisition? That gets a lot more complicated and a lot less obvious.
No, but it's not that complicated. I mean, you have in your very book, Ben, which, by the way, you charge $20 for a 120-page book, but hey, whatever the market will bear, you have a statement of property rights right there in your book. You've got a copyright. You say no one is allowed to copy the book or to use anything other than a brief excerpt in a critical essay or a review and so on. So you have a very, very clear definition of property rights that you use in your book. When you did review my book, The Art of the Argument, you accepted that it was my book, that I had written, that I had produced it, and you referred it to as...
Okay, I want to make two comments. I gotta read that book. I'm an argumentation person.
Don't read it.
Let me show you. Let me just show you one book. If you wanna study argumentation, if you're listening to me and you want to study argumentation, read this book. It's called Systematic Theory of Argumentation by Grudendorst and Van Emeren. And you don't need to agree with it. There are different theories, but whatever is in that book, one sentence from this book will be better than anything that's in Molyneux, because Molyneux, I'm sorry, does not know what the hell he's talking about most of the time. And so yeah, I have to wonder. I have to do, maybe I'll do a react video to that book. I won't. The only thing is I don't want to pay for it because I don't want to give him money. So I don't want to legally download it either through like Z Library or Library Genesis. So I don't know what the other comment was.
exclusively mine. So, all of this fifth-faff around how complicated property rights are goes in
Can you
direct
pause
opposition.
me, actually? Do you think that John Locke would actually be sympathetic towards Stefan's view in regards to property because I was thinking about your what you said about you don't know anybody who refers to like themselves as property. I was thinking about like philosophy. Like, is there any philosophers who would like hold this view? And I think maybe Locke, but I
Yeah,
don't
that's,
remember
that's a good
too
question
much.
here. I'm listening. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. So, did you
Uh,
have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Um,
I don't think I have. The only thing is, I don't think I have Locke. I think that's the only modern political philosopher that I don't have, which is upsetting. I thought I did.
I think maybe because if I remember Locke correctly, he viewed um property whatever we put our like labor into, and I think like property that was like an extension of ourselves, which was property. I don't know. It's been so long since I've read up on Locke.
Yeah. Did you take? I think you did take social and political philosophy, right?
I did, yes.
So I actually never took. I never.
Oh
That
my
was not one of my
God.
electives. Yeah.
What did
I
you
studied.
took philosophy of art instead?
Bro, don't get me started on philosophy of art. I kind of well okay, to be fair, I kind of I did take my thesis and stuff was on political philosophy, but it was on contemporary political philosophy for animals. So it I still like am familiar with political philosophy, but not from the history of philosophy perspective, I guess. Um okay, so to answer your question, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say no. And I also wonder how precise and coherent is his view anyway? Like,
It's about Locke.
Molyneux,
Oh, okay.
because I mean, he's not advancing a particular thesis about how political states get their authority or anything like that. I think, well, he is an anarchist, so I guess he would say there is no political authority. Honestly, I can't answer your question, so I don't know. Um,
I'll look into it later and then I'll let you know.
yeah, let me know for sure.
I'm going to say that Locke would be sympathetic towards that view. And this isn't the first time I've heard people refer, like people on the left and right have used arguments in regards to property when referring to themselves and referring to their bodies. I think that's just a result of like being raised in a capitalist society where basically everything has to have basically everybody's commodified to some extent. So it's an unfortunate consequence to that.
Yeah. Maybe he would agree. I don't know. I never read Locke. Well, do I really want to? I don't know. But like, at least from an understanding a historical perspective, I want to. Because I got Rousseau and Hobbes. Okay. I'm mourning over the fact that I don't have Locke. So I got to start watching the video again.
Position to the way that you actually live, the statements of ownership that you put over your own books. I mean, I hand out my books for free, but you charge your books because I guess you want to make a profit as a good Marxist.
Oh yeah. He keeps making this ad hominem towards Ben, and it's like, dude, there's nothing inconsistent about selling a book and being a communist at the same time. So like you keep trying to be like, I got you, bro. I got you on stream. You fucking sell your book for $20 and you pretend like you're a communist, but really you're just a capitalist in disguise. Bro, first of all, we're not talking about Ben. We're talking about communism and libertarianism. And secondly, bro, that's not an inconsistency there. His view is not you can't sell anything. You know what I mean?
Right. And this is a common argument that a lot of capitalists use. They're like, oh, like look at, you advocate for this like social, let's say like some social justice, but like you're wearing clothes. Like, where do you think where the clothes came from? Nike, blah blah blah. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism, and it's honestly a really bad argument because usually what I just say is like, well, your system is so exploitative. I have no other way to live besides to take part in it. So it's not that good of an argument. If anyone ever throws it at you, just
Yeah.
slap him across the face.
I would be interested in exploring that line a little bit more too. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism. Um, I'd have to see what the strongest advocate for that view is because in one sense I agree, in another sense I disagree. I disagree in a very pedantic sense that I think is really is true, and so fuck it, I'll just say it real quick. I don't think it's possible to be in a state of affairs under which you can only perform wrong actions. There will only be a situation there will be at least one uh, situation that is obligatory or the right thing to do.
Mm.
Um, maybe that's just like maybe so maybe that's not really a charitable interpretation of the view. So maybe it's something like
Yeah,
I think
it's
how
more of like a rhetorical response. It's not, um so I understand like how you would have an issue with that, but also it's kind of more of like a broad claim as well in referring to like basic survivability
mhm,
in, like I'm sure there's options that you can choose to be the most ethical consumer around, but that takes a level of privilege that most people under capitalism don't have. So, um,
I agree.
yeah,
Well,
so
I
it's
agree, but I want to add something. But yeah, you can
yeah,
finish.
yeah, go ahead, add some.
Um, I would say another pedantic point that I still think is true, but like, um, if learning all information takes a lot of time and energy that you actually don't have, then you're not obligated to do it because you don't have the time and the energy to actually do it. So you can be an ethical consumer even though you've done no research if you're just struggling to survive and you have no time to do research. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um, if you like, let's just say you don't, you have for some reason a lot of wealth and you don't even need to work because you have so much wealth, then yeah, I think you're obligated to go out of your way to learn how to do the best you can, I would say. Because you have the opportunity to. I don't know. Does that address your point? I don't know if it
no,
even
I think that I agree with you if we're looking at it like from your perspective, which is a very nuanced like perspective, I would agree. But
right. It's
when I give that response to people, they're not thinking about it from your perspective.
right. No, exactly.
You
So
know what
like
I mean?
I think you and me agree substantive I can't even say it, substantively, but like on that one exact sentence or framing it, we might yeah. So it right, I would say if someone says to me in casual conversation, there's no ethical consumption of cannibalism, I'm not gonna be like technically for any state of affairs, there's at least one set of there's a set such that the elements in that I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so
But it's also strange to me that people
I'm gonna mute myself. I'll be back in just a minute.
use
All right.
property rights. You're using exclusive use over your computer, over your webcam, over your glasses, your jacket, your shirt. I don't know if you're wearing pants or not, but if you are, then you. So the way that you live your life is with a perfect and clear understanding of property rights. But then when people start talking about taxation, it suddenly gets really complicated. And who can figure out who owns what? And it's like, well, how do you get if you don't know who owns what? How the hell are you charging $20 and making money off a book you wrote because you can't figure out who owns anything, right?
So you're equivocating about who owns what, right? So does who owns what means who is in possession of something or even who has a legal right under the current system to be in possession of something, or does it mean who has a moral right to be in possession of something? Now, I was pretty sure we were going to get the hypocrisy charge at some point. I have noticed that when you debate socialists, that you always spend a lot of time talking.
Okay, can you just make the argument? I'm sorry to interrupt, but all of this, our time is limited. Just make the argument, please.
I just let you talk for quite a long time,
Jeez.
right? So because you always do this, it's worth pointing out a couple things about this. One, even if it were true, which it's not.
Hey, can you give me a pause? I actually have to go real quick, but I'll be right back.
Can
Okay,
you hear
I
me?
guess yes.
Okay, cool. I'll be right back.
Uh, okay, okay. I'll talk to the stream. Um, hmm, what should I talk about? Argumentation. Let's talk about a systematic theory of argumentation by Greedendorf. So this is the pragma-dialectical theory of argumentation. Comes out of the Netherlands, I believe. And it's if you don't adopt the pragma-dialectical view, I think the other common approaches are the informal logic school. That's in the United States and Canada. And then you also get rhetoric, theory of rhetoric. Those are three main ones. Informal logic also includes theory of fallacies, so like fallacy theory. Um, I think an underrated part of argumentation
That's something about
is the role that people place on dialectics. I mentioned dialectics earlier, but I didn't really talk about it because it's a fancy jargony word. So when we think about argumentation, if you study philosophy, probably just think of logic. You probably just think of what's my conclusion and what premises do I need to make such that the conclusion is logically entailed. And that's important. Understanding formal logic can be really helpful. But I think it's important to remember that arguments happen between minds and in conversations between people. And logic doesn't account for that. And that's where I think rhetoric and dialectic comes in. I'm still studying what exactly distinguishes dialectics and rhetoric because I think that they're closer than a lot of people take for granted. But basically, the way Aristotle saw it was that rhetoric happens from a speaker to a large audience, such as in political speeches, and dialectic happens between one person to another. A big part of rhetoric is understanding. I'm just yapping about argumentation, I guess. Whatever comes to mind until Damien comes back. Um, a big part of rhetoric is understanding what your audience is. And I think that's really important because the kinds of arguments you're going to make and the kinds of conclusions you're going to advocate for will vary depending on your audience. If you're talking to an audience that's very homogeneous, very
All right,
similar. Okay, you're
I'm
back?
back. Yes.
Okay, I was just yapping about argumentation until you got back. So I was really put on the spot there because I was like, shit, bro, like
Yeah,
I
now you
got
know what it's like when you leave. No, I'm just kidding. I don't really bother me.
at least
I just watch.
yeah. Okay, so I just played again.
Yeah, go ahead.
selling books or whatever is hypocritical, then this would be sublimely irrelevant to whether I'm right or wrong about any of the things that we're arguing about. If somebody
Exactly. Ben's character or actions have no bearing on the truth value of the claim. Is communism the best economic theory? Is libertarianism the best political theory or whatever? Ben's actions have nothing to do with that. He's just trying to shit on Ben because he's a bad faith actor.
these
Yes.
ideas are internally inconsistent, then that's relevant because it shows that they must be wrong about one half or the other. If somebody's ideas are actually inconsistent with their behavior, that might just show that that might just show personal weakness. Now, are my ideas actually inconsistent with my behavior? Well, no, not really, for a couple of reasons. First of all, you'll notice that nothing I have said advocates the abolition of all acts of buying and selling, that no one should ever buy or sell anything. In fact, I haven't even advocated the abolition of intellectual property, which you seem to sometimes. So if that's if that's the case, then if you sell anything, right, then if we're going to play that game, right, that you are charging anything for anything that you ever do, that's intellectual property, that might be hypocritical. But secondly, in order to be hypocritical, I would have to be doing something that I advocate that others don't do. And of course, as a leftist, as a socialist, I am not advocating that we try to bring about social change through individuals changing their individual behavior. I advocate institutional and structural solutions. So if a libertarian or conservative who thinks that the solution to people who can't get life-saving operations unless they can afford it is private charity, and you don't give money to private charity, that might be hypocritical. It's certainly not hypocritical for a socialist not to. It might be hypocritical for a socialist to evade paying taxes to pay for national health care. But also because I know that you're very fond of doing this. It's probably going to come up at some point of asking people if they've ever run a business, which always strikes me as kind of funny because you criticize government bureaucrats, even though you presumably...
Well, no, hang on. Let me debate for myself. Don't debate on my behalf, Ben. I mean, let me debate and ask the questions myself. I mean, then I might as well just go and take a shit and come back later, right? So just debate.
What? What
Okay.
is this dude talking about, bro?
For real.
Mr. Clean needs to calm down.
Bro. Okay. It's very important to anticipate objections, and it's very important and very common for people who are good faith arguers to anticipate objections as their interlocutor and represent their view and then provide a response to it. And that's all Ben is doing. He's anticipating an objection and he's representing his interlocutor's view and providing an objection to it. And so Molyneux was like, let me make the argument. Bro, let Ben make the argument, bro. Why are you trying to control the conversation so much, bro? Like, you're not the dictator of the conversation, bro. It's a two-way street. And Ben is
go on.
I'll just say Ben's very respectful in this entire debate. And he's very, how do I say it? Cool-headed, I guess. He remains calm and tries to bring it back to the topic at hand, unlike the other guy. Were you gonna say something?
Is it crazy to say that Jordan Peterson is a better debater than Stefan?
Bro, because at least with Jordan, see,
I don't think it's crazy to say that.
Jordan Peterson, he does do good things. Yeah, I think he represents his interlocutor's views charitably, and he tries to understand them. And I think he does that all the time. He does a bunch of other things that are just like not good. Like he's factually wrong very often, and he speaks literal gibberish a lot of the time. And also his views are just wildly conservative. Anyway, so yeah, I would rate Peterson. Oh, we have to have a tier list of debaters.
Oh, like an argumentative tier list.
Bro, we should make one. Okay, I'll set one up right now while the video plays.
Yeah, go ahead.
Debate for you.
A publishing company charges for the book, right? That the author makes a contract with the publishing company for how much they're going to pay him.
No, but you can give the book away for free.
What they pay for the books is an entirely separate subject.
Okay, all right. Okay, so here's the thing, right? So this is from 2011, right? Taxpayer subsidies that cover the operating costs of most colleges and universities ranges from about $8,000 to more than $100,000 for each bachelor's degree awarded. Most public institutions averaging more than $60,000 per degree. So you have a PhD, which is probably about 9 years worth of this. So you've taken about $100,000 at a bare minimum from the working class. Now, they don't get to choose that, right? Because they have to pay the taxes that go towards your education, right? So the working class, you're very much about, well, let's not exploit the working classes, but you have forced through the power of the state, the working classes to support your education while you're going through and getting your PhD. And in return, what do? Well, you do a couple of things. The first thing is you write philosophical papers that are completely incomprehensible to the layperson. So that seems like not a very good return and care for the actual working classes that have been forced to subsidize your education. And the second thing you do after taking at least $100,000.
I'll just comment on that first point real quick. I said I'd comment on his first point real quick.
Okay.
I mostly disagree, but there is some. I think you can totally critique academia as being inaccessible to non-experts, but for him to be like, you pretend to care about the working class, yet I can't understand this paper you wrote, so therefore you're not a communist. It's like it's just a shit argument. I'm sorry, dude.
That's pretty bad.
I have to leave soon. I'm having fun, so it's very difficult, but I need to, yeah, so I don't know when, but relatively soon.
All right.
Through force from the working classes is you charge $20. You don't even give them the book for free. And you could ask for donations and so on. So this idea, well, I'm helpless as to how I charge for my book, that's nonsense. I hand out my books for free. Because I did take money from the working classes, although I come from the working class, that's neither here nor there. I did take money from the working classes, and I consider that I really should use the education that was provided by the working classes to actually go out and really help with the working classes. And I don't find any of your lectures online. Maybe they are. I find that you hide out in a university protected by the state, which takes money from the working classes so that you can educate other people who are going to take money from the working classes so that you can all hand out these polysyllabic mishmash word salad papers that do absolutely nothing to benefit the working classes. So yeah, if you're going to talk about your care and concern for the working classes and your absolute horror at exploiting the working classes, I'm just going to look up and say, you're actually doing a whole lot worse than somebody who's actually providing a job for people.
Okay, Stephen. Look, let's take the slew of absurd claims just made and try to take them one at a time.
I'm framing again.
Yeah, I am going to.
Bro, Molyneux, bro. Why you're like the most bad faith actor I've ever seen in a debate, and then Ben's just like very reasonably, he's like, okay, let's just. I mean, yeah, it is. His bias or perspective is showing, but bro, he's right. It is just a slew of like barely connected claims just to shit on Ben. It's just like, and
Yeah,
and
this is
like,
ridiculous.
yes.
You've done quite a bit of framing yourself. So let's talk about this. First of all, if you can't find my lectures online, you're not looking very hard, because there are dozens. There's look at the Zero Books YouTube channel.
No. Your university lectures, not stuff you've done in podcasts.
My university lectures. Well, these days, these days those are online too. But look, I have.
Sorry, your university lectures are not online. Is that right?
Well, I have actually put some YouTube lectures online. I also prefer class discussion rather than me just lecturing at people all the time. But also, what any of this has to do with anything is beyond me. It's obviously irrelevant to whether I'm right or wrong about any of the issues that we're talking about for reasons that have already been explained, but just to dispense with a lot of the false things that you just said. I did not, say, oh, it's not true, I don't control the price of the book because I could give it away for free. First,
I'm gonna make a tier list for next time. I don't want to make an account right now. I'll have it set up for
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'll give away a tremendous amount of writing for free. If you did any kind of Google search, you know that. Secondly, I've sent many people who told me they couldn't afford it free PDFs of the book. I know my editor and publisher have done the same thing. Third, it's not hypocritical to take, in however indirect and horrible a system that it might be, money for education, because I don't object to taxation to pay for education. In fact, I do exactly the opposite. I want a whole lot more of it. I support Bernie Sanders' proposal to do what's worked well elsewhere and have taxpayer-funded free public education. It's one of the public goods that I think should be supported by taxation. Now, I know you don't want any public goods to be supported by taxation.
No.
Yet, I'm not going to accuse you of being a hypocrite for driving on roads built with taxation or walking on sidewalks built with taxation, or even the fact, I believe you're in Toronto, last I knew, that I'm pretty sure that if you got COVID-19 tomorrow, you would be fast on your way to a hospital where your medical care would be paid for by taxation. Maybe you would insist on principle on waiting until you got to the United States first, but I kind of doubt it. And none of this is relevant. Now, we've got less than 15 minutes remaining. What I would strongly suggest is
I'd like to respond to at least the healthcare part.
About hypocrisy that have nothing to do with the subject, that we actually talk about substantive issues, like, for example, the obvious contradiction between your professed libertarianism and the kinds of arguments that you use for immigration restrictions.
Well, we did immigrate.
Okay. I want to make a quick point. If you're a libertarian and you're against immigration, then you're not a libertarian. Michael Huemer is a libertarian. I'm very skeptical of his political views, but he did a talk on immigration once, or a video or something like that, and I watched it. Michael Huemer is a professor of political philosophy at University of Colorado at Boulder, I think. I'm just like, honestly, if you're for freedom, then you should be pro-immigration. Huemer thinks that there should be no borders, and I was just like, like libertarians, not this libertarian, no, other libertarians, just always shock me because they'll have like the most base take alongside the least space take. You know, it's 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 very interesting.
Yeah.
Like saying there should be no borders. You should be able to go to whatever country you want. Um, I'm just like, honestly, that makes sense. And then he's
Yeah, it
like,
does.
and then, yeah. So
I know some libertarians they like they it's all about property. So they think that the state itself is like private property. So like immigrants coming in would be like and then this is actually an argument that a lot of conservatives use. It's like almost like if people that you didn't know were like coming into your home or something. Like they use that analogy. So like that would be like a libertarian, some form of libertarian argument of like why immigration is bad. But I think most I don't know what most libertarians think. I won't say that, but I know that's an argument I've heard before.
yeah, I'll look into that. I mean, watching this debate, Ben Burgess referenced Robert Nozick, who I have his book, but I haven't read it, and then somebody else who was a libertarian, and it kind of made me be like, damn, I really haven't read any libertarian thinkers, so I definitely want to. I I feel like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I haven't
Um,
either. I refuse.
I'm very big. I'm very big on reading people I disagree with because
Yeah,
I don't agree with most people. I mean, you probably picked up on that I'm just kind of like extraordinarily eclectic in my positions. So I'm kind of like I'm like always I'm never reading somebody because I'm like, yeah, I fucking agree with this. I'm always reading it because it's like there's probably like one thing that I agree with here that I'll probably take away. Um,
yeah. I get that. Um I'm similar. Maybe I
mhm.
won't like read it. I'll probably like watch a video on it or do like some maybe do like some online research. But I do enjoy like looking into different ideologies, especially ones I feel like I really don't like, just so I can what's the word? Well, it's good to do that so like I can like form debate kind of topics and stuff, but
Yeah.
also just so I can shit on it for fun while I while I read it or listen to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is terrible.
Well, okay, I feel like okay, I agree with all that, and to add on to that, I feel like if you're of a particular political ideology and you've never made an effort to research the other opposing views to any extent, then you're probably not as justified in your view as you might think you are, you know? I'm not saying like you have to go out and read even one full book on libertarianism to be against libertarianism, but you should like know a little bit. I don't
Yeah,
know. You know
you
what I
should
mean?
read a little bit of Mein Kampf just to make sure you're not a fascist.
Bro,
Because you might be
okay,
a little bit of a fascist
bro,
if you
bro,
don't
okay.
read. No,
I feel like you're calling me out on the live stream right now, bro.
no. No.
No, I gotta
I'm
cut.
sorry. I was joking. I was joking. I was joking. It was a joke.
The force of your argument hit a little bit too hard. I was just like, fuck. I was just like, fuck, because that's clearly entailed by my view. Okay.
Well, I think what I actually don't think so. I think what you're saying is if you have one particular view without researching, especially in politics, without researching opposing views, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to research them in the sake that, oh, I might be this, but just more so, how can you be, because you're talking about justification. So it's just more so like how how can you be so sure that this is correct without looking at alternatives? It seems like you haven't even like really thought this out very much. Um, so I don't think it was an actual objection to your view. I was just joking around.
You scared me, bro. You
No,
scared me.
no, you're good. I'm sorry.
It's
He,
okay.
he, he,
Dude, you do
Pinecone is not a fascist, I swear.
dude, you I don't know if you know this, but you'll do this to me like I'll be saying stuff and you'll very casually make like a half joke, half like I don't know what kind of you would call that, like reductio ad absurdum, like of my position, and I'll just like I'll be like casual, like not casually, I'll be like in my head like, bro, fuck, like am I wrong? And then like
What
you'll
was
just
it? Wait,
like
what was
you're
the
like,
term you just used?
I'm
What did
just
that
kidding.
mean?
Oh,
Reducto.
reductio ad
Yeah, what
absurdum?
is that?
Oh, um, you present a point of view and you show that that point of view entails something that's absurd. And
Okay.
so you say this is obviously absurd, which means that where you came from is also exactly just as absurd. Um,
Okay. I do that a lot. It just comes out naturally.
I know, bro, and it scares me because I'm just like, I don't know. Yeah. So
Oh my God. Okay. One more thing. I saw a Reddit post on our philosophy. Um, someone said why basically saying why not transracialism if we accept transgenderism. And I was excited because I'm like, it's finally happened. I've been waiting for this moment since like high school. I was like, why are we not there yet? So, um, there's actually like literature on it too, which I have to look into of transracialism, and it's pretty convincing. And then a lot of arguments against it are pretty not convincing in my opinion. Um, but we can get into that another time.
no, we totally should talk about that sometimes because I think you I mean I think I mostly agree with you. But yeah, you have I think a very controversial and surprising view that I think is entailed by things that most leftists already agree with and that I think are
Yes,
really basic.
yes.
And I feel like, okay, if you disagree with this, I want to know, but I feel like there's there's a difference with you making the argument versus me. Like I'm white, so like if I make the argument, people are gonna be like, "Shut the fuck up, bro!" Like just shut up. And I'm like, you know what? You know what? Fine.
Like, fine, fair.
Fair enough. But I feel like because so I feel like there's a I don't know. Do you agree with that or no? I don't
I
know.
agree. I think when we're talking about like how it looks socially, it definitely is not a good look, especially if they just don't know who you are at all. Like you could be a white, um, you know, masculine presenting person who is using the argument of transracialism in bad faith to go against like transgenderism or something. Like without any context, it looks like it could be a little sketch. And especially like talking about topics as nuanced as race and being white can be really difficult. You got to tread very carefully. So I get it. Like when it coming from you, it's a little like, I'm not gonna get too extreme with this. Um, but I
Yeah,
think
for
when
real.
coming from me, it is a bit um different. But I think that's interesting though. I think that's an interesting thing that you mentioned because I think about um um how do I say this? I don't know how to explain it. I almost think about it like if a cis man were to discuss about trans woman issues, would that be as much of a red flag?
I think okay. I think it's important that people advocate on behalf of other people who are not part of that identity group.
Hmm.
So, but I think it's important that people who are of the identity group have their voices heard the most, probably.
Right.
Um, yeah. So I don't think there's nothing. It's a difficult topic. Well, because I feel like there there's this distinction between the actual, I guess, force or quality of someone's position or argument, and then there's like that person as they are within a social context and as like a person in a conversation. It's like, why are you, if you're in an act, okay, if you're presenting an argument at like, I don't know. like I want to say an academic conference, and maybe that's just elitist, but I'll just go with it for now. Academic conference. Yeah, probably. I actually don't feel like I know what I'm talking about, so maybe I should just stop. I don't know,
Okay.
because I feel like I have a difficult time expressing this view. How do I say this? There's just okay. Being an ally is important, but also like I guess being annoying and talking about things when you're not, no one fucking asked you is also important. And I think that's the point. I think that's
Right.
a consideration is like I don't know.
No, I think I get what you're saying. I think I agree in regards
Yeah.
to that.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
I'll go on.
Well, I wanted to add sometimes I see myself as being very pro-feminist, and I'm really interested in feminist theory, and I like talking about feminism. I'm always worried when I talk about it, people are gonna just like not, I don't know, sometimes it's gonna be off. They're gonna be like, shut the fuck up or something. And I mean, like fair enough, I guess. But like even so like the job I have now, one of the interview questions was how do you define feminism? And I was like,
Wait, what was the question? How do you define feminism?
yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, I gave my answer, but there's a big part of me that was like, I can't say exactly what I think because people will judge me. You know what I mean? Um, but obviously not in this circumstance. So I kind of let that go a little bit, which was, saying things like, uh, I'm having a brain fart, dismantling the patriarchy, getting rid of sexism, um, for yeah. Uh, you talk about stuff like that, getting rid of the gender gap, pay gap, um, reducing and ending and abolish and like getting rid of all sexual violence. So stuff like that. Okay, here's another thing. I give one more example. I give an example. This is slightly personal. Um, and this clearly shows the autism in me, I
Oh my
think.
gosh.
Um, somebody posted on Facebook like about how if they want to go to it was like a woman posting about if they want to go to the beach and not wear like a bra or like the top part of a bathing suit or whatever, that they should be able to do that. And I agree. And I was friends with them, so I commented on the post saying that I agree. And then there were guys commenting on my comment who were like, "Yeah, bro, I agree as well."
Right.
And I'm like, "Is this what other people think?" Because I'm not. Because then it's like I'm trying. My comment comes off as if I'm like, "Yeah, I love objectifying women, and if they do this, then I can objectify them more." Like that's what it comes off as. Um,
Okay,
okay, yeah.
I
So give me your
100
opinion. Yeah, give your opinion.
No, no, I okay, I get it. I actually like I, you know, I'm a racial minority. Um, but I mostly present as masculine. So when I do talk about women's issues, it's, a lot of the times I take a lot of care and, a lot of humility because I recognize that, most of my life I was raised as part of the group that was the oppressor in that sense. Um, and so I think, when you are a part of that majority, it can be like, and you talk about these issues, people can come from the perception that you're being performative, that
Exactly.
you're
Yeah,
yeah,
performative.
that you're like maybe virtue signaling or like, oh, you don't really
Hmm.
care. And I think it comes from a perspective where like a lot of people just can't understand the concept of like actually caring about a group outside of your own, which is just such a crazy concept. And so like I think sometimes like, you and I, we may come off that way just purely from the fact of our gender presentation. Um, but Um, I think that there is an importance of having a form of allyship when it comes to those things. So maybe it's just like a bullet that we just have to bite sometimes. And of course, like, if we get, sometimes out of our own ignorance, we might say something that's just like, well, that
True.
was like, that was just misogynistic, you know, and so we just have to like look at ourselves constantly, being like, evaluate, was this like, did I say something here that was not right, stuff like that. So it's just a constant evaluation of yourself. So I think sometimes you'll come off that way, whether you're misrepresented or whether you have internalized misogyny, just due to part of being raised in a patriarchy. Um,
Mhm.
so just kind of how it is, unfortunately, sometimes.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I think you explained exactly what I wanted to,
Yeah.
what I was attempting to explain but couldn't. I'm gonna
I
ask,
do have
yeah,
what is this cat doing? I'm so sorry. Okay, he's fine. I do have one thing I do want to say. It was a response to what you said about I take a lot of leftist ideas and I kind of like turn them in such a way where a leftist may disagree, but then like they end up using the same rhetoric that conservatives use. I was actually just having a conversation with someone who's very, very on the left, and I was talking about the conversation of people who identify as like AI or identify as robots. And so this is a real community and stuff. And they seemed very against the idea of people, changing themselves into like some kind of like robotic entity. And they were using like the same arguments, like I'm trying to think of one. Um, well, I can't think of one right now. But it was just an example of like by the end of it, they actually like the conversation got a little bit heated. They like went somewhere and then they came back and they're like, "Wait, I realized that I was being really bigoted." And I was like, "Yeah, you kind of were." But it came from a point of human supremacy because what they were saying is like the idea like, well, these things aren't even human, so like honestly, you should like kill them. Like, why would someone like, want to even like be, a robot? They wouldn't have rights under this thing, and they don't all this stuff. So it was just interesting. So I think I tend to do that a lot, just because I like playing with ideas, but in like a faithful manner.
hmm
But anyway, you could probably cut that part out because that was just more like me talking.
No, it was interesting.
All right.
I thought it was interesting. Um, I'm gonna wrap things up. Let's check the time. Oh yeah, longer than I wanted to. Let's listen. Let's listen for like 2 more minutes, and we'll see what happens, and we'll wrap it up.
All right.
Last time it would be kind of boring to retread it. So with regards to something like healthcare or using the roads or using the sidewalks and so on, look, come on. Ben, you understand that if somebody is imprisoned, you don't blame them for eating prison food. Like if someone is unjustly imprisoned, you don't blame them for going to the prison doctor when they're sick. When coercion has removed free choice from the marketplace, you do have to make do with what you've got. And by the by, the fucking Canadian healthcare system almost killed me by misdiagnosing me for a year and allowing a lump that was not cancerous to develop into cancer, at which point I had to fly to the United States for life-saving surgery that was going to be delayed by another couple of months up here in Canada. So, I'm sorry for being a little pissed off here, but when people talk to me about how hypocritical it is for me to try and use the Canadian healthcare system when it is specifically denied to me to use a voluntary market healthcare system without flying to the States, pisses me off a little bit. So don't blame me for the fact that the government is not allowing me to have a private free market healthcare solutions or roads or anything like that. We all have to make do with the system that we're in. But where there are alternatives, where there are options, you should avail yourself. And I have to go to a doctor in Canada. I'm not allowed to have a private doctor. You don't have to charge $20 for a 100-page book when you've already been paid by the working classes for your education, and you should give something back.
Well, first of all, I give back for free all the time. Secondly, I think that if you look at the results of Canadian versus U.S. healthcare, they speak for themselves. There's a reason that life expectancy is higher and infant mortality is lower in Canada versus the United States. The idea that a misdiagnosis is the result of who pays the bills for the healthcare system rather than a doctor making a mistake seems obviously.
Well, not just one. Not just one.
Okay. Several doctors make a mistake. Doctors make mistakes in every healthcare system. The question is which system overall delivers better results and causes more satisfaction. And I think it's pretty self-evident that there's a reason that in Canada, even the Conservative Party doesn't run on a platform of let's abolish Canadian Medicare, because they know they'd never win another election. If
Well,
they
that's an argument from popularity. Hang on, that's an argument from popularity, which you specifically dismiss in your book.
For popularity.
Is that an argument from popularity? I want to comment on the content, but let me just think of. I mean, if you want to make a comment, you're free to. I want to think
No,
about that
I'm
for a
good.
second.
I don't even want to touch. I'm good.
Um, so what exactly is the claim? The claim is that even the conservatives in Canada wouldn't want to run on abolishing universal health care. And I don't think that's a argument from popularity, because he's not saying this is the correct view and it's the correct view because most Canadians think it. No. I think he's saying I think he's saying people maybe it is. Maybe it is an argument for popularity. I think he's because I wanted to say getting rid of universal healthcare is clearly a bad idea, and it's a bad idea, and most people think it's a bad idea in Canada because they like what they have now. Anyway, I don't think it's a particularly bad argument. I don't like I like fallacy theory. I think talking about fallacies is useful and interesting, but it just as something's like a fallacy doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad argument.
True.
So I don't know how to exactly assess that. Um, I'm sorry, Molyneux almost died from a tumor. That's really horrible. I hope that happens to nobody. But the fact of the matter is that I think the Canadian healthcare system is just on like bar for bar or whatever better than the United States.
It
And
is. It is. Yes.
and then I'm almost wondering like, okay, so you went to the U.S. You went to the U.S. and you probably paid a lot of money to get saved, basically. What about all the people in the United States who are dying because they don't have the money? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I don't know. It's hard to know how to exactly engage with this argument because I want to take Molyneux at his word about his experience, but it's like, I mean, it sounds like he almost died or something like that, or could have died, and so like, how objective really is his perspective going to be?
Yeah, it's not, you know, his situation was unfortunate, but it's not objective. And obviously, when we're talking about entire systems, we're not looking at a sample size of one. Um, so
Right.
the U.S. healthcare system is bar for bar worse than um its, developed country counterparts. So it's not good. I think I actually was just I was literally just looking at like a website that was comparing all the healthcare systems, and US was ranking like bottom in like basically almost every component except for I think like process, which is just purely like the how the healthcare is organized into like steps. But like it was like worse in outcome, worse in like um availability in terms of like how many people have access to healthcare. It was like literally at the bottom. I think Australia was up there on a lot of them if people want to go somewhere with decent healthcare. Not saying it's perfect by any means, but it was like ranked one or two on almost every category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I find it very difficult. I find it very difficult for people to defend not adopting a kind of universal healthcare system that we have, that a lot of other countries have, like the Scandinavian countries and Canada. And like you said, Australia, apparently, I'm not familiar with Australia's healthcare system.
Yeah, it's universal.
Um, I wish, okay, I'm gonna have to wrap things up. I have to say, as bad as a debater as Molyneux, as bad of a debater that Molyneux has been so far, it gets like three times as worse later in the video. And I just wish I knew where it was. Um, because it's like I was listening to it and I was like, oh my God, this is actual brain rot. Like I don't know why Ben is on this channel because yeah, So maybe I'll find the what are your closing statements? Closing
Um,
thoughts.
yeah, so I don't even know where to begin. I don't like Stefan's views on a lot of things. He's impossible to argue with. He just has a constant like smackable face. Like I just want to punch him in the face every time he gives this like stupid grin as Ben tries to like even like speak for seconds and he's like, okay, start your argument because like we don't got all day. Um, it's just not good. I mean, I don't know. Ben, I feel like we didn't get to see too much of Ben in this video, but when the parts that I do get to see. He seemed pretty good. I didn't, I'm not a democratic socialist, so there's parts that I'm not going to agree with, but I think he defended a lot of his arguments very well. Um, and having to debate against Stefan is just, he's kept his patience for like 50 minutes in already. That's impressive. So I'll give it to Ben, here.
True. Yeah,
Yeah.
good point. Um, hmm. Ben, I don't know if you probably don't know because you don't know either of the people. I guess I should have introduced this at some point. Ben Burgess is an academic philosopher, so he got, academically trained in philosophy for a long time. I don't know where he teaches, but he's a professor somewhere, and I think he does political philosophy and maybe philosophy of math. I can't really remember. I think, yeah, I don't know. It would have been nice to see more of Ben, but when I just listen to you talk, I'm just like, if you're familiar with basic, I don't know, communist theory, you'll kind of like anticipate what he's gonna say, and it's nothing particularly. I'm not saying it's bad and or uninsightful, but it's just like it's something you would have probably heard before, and it's
Yeah.
just um, it's not like particularly interesting. I think it fits. I think he did a good job fitting it for this debate because like I like to say, you want your premises to be uncontroversial, and that's what I think he does. If he makes a bunch of he has he does make claims that are controversial, but most of the claims he makes are not, and that's what you want to do for effective argumentation. Molyneux, mm-mm. I'd rank him.
Wait, get the tier list out.
I can't. I got to make an account. We're
Oh, okay.
video number three. We'll put the tier list together. First thing we do is we'll put the tier list together.
I'd say
Um,
D tier.
what brings him out of F tier for you?
Um, what bring? That's a great question because like I honestly it was just like I can imagine worse. I think it's more so like I can,
Mhm.
he okay. This is what I'll say. He brought up things that were at least somewhat true in regards to like anarchist theory. He introduced anarchist theory. He introduced some capitalist theory, some libertarian theory. The things he was saying, uh, like they weren't horrible, but it was his argumentative demeanor that falls very, 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 very short. Like I think I'll give him some credit. He sounds as though he has some idea of what he's talking about. Okay, I'll say that. So that's why I think F tier is like if everything you're saying is false, if you can't argument for the like Trump to me is like a pure F tier like debater. Like if we watch the Harris Trump debate right now, that would
Yeah.
be an F tier in
Okay.
regards to Trump.
I think D tier is a good fit. I was originally inclined to say F tier, but no, there's definitely a subclass of arguers below Molyneux.
Yeah.
I have somebody in mind that would be F tier. I don't know his name, but I'm curious. I need you to react to him. And
Okay.
he has like short videos, so we could do like a 10-minute video of him.
I
But
feel like as someone who doesn't follow a lot of these like debaters and thinkers and such, I feel like I'm just being dragged along like the brain rot of like like academic brain rot. I don't know. Like at first Peterson and Harris and um now Ben or not Ben. Now Stefan. So and Ben's B tier by the way.
Okay, true. What I rank Ben? I think the only thing about Ben is sometimes I feel like I get bored sometimes. And I'm not saying, and I watch boring stuff, dude. Like, I watch really boring stuff. So, like, so I'm not saying that, like, you don't have to be an entertaining thinker to be a good arguer, but I think it's boring in the sense that it's like,
It seems like it's unimaginative to you. It seems like he kind of recycles and like repeats like already established like ideas of that group that he's a part of.
yeah,
Maybe is that what it is for you?
it is. It's like basic. That's the only thing is it comes off as kind of basic a lot of the time,
Yeah.
like milk toast, democratic socialist. And I'm not trying to be mean to Ben. If somehow Ben sees this, Ben, you should join the podcast. But like, uh, I'm not trying to say anything mean. I haven't even seen that much of his stuff, so I don't know. For an academic philosopher, I think he's yeah. I would say B minus.
B minus. Okay. I mean, it seems like we both have a similar place for both of them.
I can't put him in C tier. I think that's too low.
That's too low. No, that's too low. I think Peterson is C tier to be honest. Like low C if I had to do like a C minus.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
You don't know? I mean,
Okay, we
he
got to do the next video because he gets worse, bro. He gets like
okay.
he
That's
gets
to be fair. Haven't watched any Peterson besides the video you showed me, and he
true.
was bad, but it wasn't the most awful thing. It wasn't
Bro.
like I didn't want to smack him across the face as much as like every time Ben started speaking and Stefan was like oh my God, get to your point already. Like it wasn't terrible.
We
Destiny.
got we got to watch this video next.
Oh God, I don't even.
Oh, fuck.
Destiny.
Well, then what do you make
Otherwise,
about
how
the-
would you expect?
Okay, just play it.
I gotta leave, so I can't
Oh, okay,
watch this.
okay.
No,
Well,
no,
I'll just I'll just
I'll pull it up for a second because I just gotta see.
okay.
Let's just see what comes up first.
Explain it, because the leftists should have been the ones that were most skeptical about the bloody pharmaceutical companies, and they jumped on the vaccine bandwagon in exactly the same way that you're doing right
pharmaceutical
now.
companies have helped us tremendously
Yeah,
throughout the
right. There we go. Fine. No,
You think
I
modern
don't
medicine
think so.
hasn't?
Jordan Peterson and Destiny just had a very intense.
Oh, fuck. Here, wait. I don't know if they'll. Don't
Did
play
he
Hume with
become
me.
more like intense with age?
I think so.
He
There's
seems
this
less reasonable.
there's this line he says. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. He's like, "Don't play Hume with me." It's so funny.
If you don't want children, you're either deluded or immature. Play
You want
that
to have a
for me.
relationship with someone? You want someone around you can trust? You want someone around you can tie your life to in this way that weaves a rope? You want someone you can grow old with? You want someone to be a mother for your children, assuming you want children? And if you don't want children, well, you probably will. And if you don't, you're either deluded or immature. And you might say, well, no, the planet has too many people on it. It's like, yeah, whatever. Good luck with that. Every single one of your ancestors reproduced in an unending procession lasting 3.5 billion years. And they're all wrong, and you're right. I don't think so. You want to have a
What?
relationship?
Well, okay. Well, I won't get into that because you have to go. But that was horrible.
Dude, yeah, Ben.
Get down.
I was saying Ben. What am I thinking of? Oh yeah, I gotta go. I got rehearsal, but like, um,
Bro, I
not
can tell
good,
you
but
really enjoy these videos. You don't want to leave. You're like, I just want to keep reacting to this.
dude, I have a problem, bro. Because I found out, dude, I'm a yapper, bro.
You are a yapper, yeah. I'm a
I'm a
yapper
yap,
too. Most autists are yappers.
bro,
When
and
when
I've
I
been,
have when I have conversation with my friends who are also autistic, it's literally like it's like, oh my God, this extremely nuanced topic that is a niche that no one else talks about besides people who are also into this topic, and then you'd be like, yeah, bro. But now I'm gonna give you this niche topic that no one else talks about, and it's just like a yap. It's like it's just yapping at each other. And if you just so happen to have two autistic people who have the same interests, then you can have like a coherent yap session. But if it's two different interests, it's like, okay, you do your yap first, and then I'll do my yap. It's just like,
Dude,
what the
that's
heck?
literally it. That's literally it. Bro, and that's why I'm so happy you're on this podcast because like, bro, like, yeah, just I need, bro. All my friends are yappers. Bro, I feel like I got to mask my day-to-day life by not yapping about philosophy like all the time, bro.
It's hard,
Um,
bro.
it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. And people ask me like, "Oh, like, what do you like about philosophy?" And I'm like, a million thoughts come to my head all at once, and I'm like, it's fun to read. That's what I say.
That's it. It's
Like
just fun to read.
because I can't be like one. Okay, I gotta go. Like
Just
okay,
go, bro. We,
we're
we
get
look.
we're
We can if you want to do a reaction video, Friday or tomorrow. I can do that. Next time I'm available would be Tuesday.
let's do Friday.
Okay, cool.
Okay, talk to you later.
Bye.